Imagine this. It's June 22nd, 1994. Rose Bowl, Pasadena, California. 90,000 people in the stadium and millions more watching at home across South America. You're playing for Colombia at the World Cup, the one your country has waited decades for. Pelé himself picked Colombia as a dark horse to win the whole tournament. You beat Argentina 5-0 in qualifying. The expectation back home isn't just hope, it's certainty. You're a defender, the best Colombia has. Your job is simple: keep the ball out of your net. A cross comes in from the left. You move to clear it, routine, something you've done 10,000 times. Your foot connects. The ball changes direction. For 1 full second, the stadium is completely silent. Then the net moves, your own net. You watch it settle, and for a moment, your brain refuses to process what your eyes are telling it. Your teammates won't look at you. The American players are celebrating somewhere behind you, but the sound is distant, muffled, like it's happening in another room. You lost this game, 2-1. You will go home. The tournament your country waited decades for is over in a moment that took 2 seconds and 1 wrong touch. And somewhere in the stands, and back in Medellin, and in rooms you will never see, people who bet very large amounts of money on Colombia are watching the same replay on the same screens. And they are far from happy. Oh, hey there. With the World Cup going on right now, you've probably watched a few own goals already. Maybe you laughed. Maybe you cringed. Maybe you felt bad for the guy for about 30 seconds before the next play happened. That's normal. That's football. An own goal is embarrassing. It's unfortunate, and then it's over. Except once. Once, it wasn't over. His name was Andrés Escobar. No relation to Pablo. Different family, different life, completely different legacy. Though Colombia in the 1990s made that distinction harder to maintain than it should have been. He was 27 years old, a central defender for Atlético Nacional in the Colombian national team, known across South America as El Caballero del Fútbol, the gentleman of football. Not a nickname given to him by a marketing team, one he earned by being exactly that, a genuinely good person in a sport in a country that made being a good person rather difficult. Before we talk about what these very angry and rich cartel members did to you, just for scoring a goal against yourself, let's look at the connection between the cartel and sports. Colombian football in the late 1980s and early 1990s was one of the most exciting and most dangerous football ecosystems on the planet. The teams were good, genuinely, legitimately good. But underneath that, the money running through the sport wasn't coming from television deals and shirt sponsors. It was coming from people who moved cocaine. The cartels, primarily the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel, had poured enormous amounts of money into Colombian football clubs. Atlético Nacional, the club you are playing for, was directly linked to cartel financing. América de Cali, same story, different cartel. The money was real, the investment was real, and the interest these men took in results was very, very real. By 1994, the Colombian national team had become a source of enormous national pride and enormous cartel investment simultaneously. When Pelé tipped Colombia as a dark horse to win the tournament and the odds were generous, the kind of men who had that kind of money placed the kind of bets that don't get laughed off when they go wrong. We're not talking about losing your fantasy football entry fee. We're talking about millions of dollars placed by people whose standard response to losing money was to find whoever was responsible and make sure they understood the consequences. Then, the cross came in from the left, and your foot did what it did. And suddenly, there was a very clear answer to the question of who was responsible, even if it was not intentional. So you fly home to Medellin, which, and this needs to be said, was probably not the advice a travel agent would have given you under the circumstances. The reception isn't great. Death threats arrive almost immediately. Not the anonymous internet kind that people send to footballers today from the safety of their mother's basement, but the Colombian 1994 kind, which carried considerably more logistical follow-through. People who knew things told you to be careful. People who knew more things told you to leave. You stayed. Instead, you did something that, in retrospect, was either incredibly brave or incredibly optimistic, depending on how generous you're feeling. You wrote a column in a national newspaper under your own name. You asked Colombia for calm. You asked for understanding. You said the team would come back stronger. You signed it and sent it to print in a country where certain readers had already decided how they felt about you. Then, on July 2nd, 10 days after your own goal, you went out. El Indio nightclub, Medellin. Because you were 27 and this was your city and you had done nothing wrong and you were not going to spend your life hiding from men who were angry about a football match. That was the right call morally. Tactically, not so much. You leave the club. The parking lot is quiet. Warm night, familiar city, and for a few hours inside El Indio, you almost forgot what was waiting outside. Almost. A car pulls up. A man gets out. His name is Humberto Munoz Castro, and he works for people who lost money on a football match 10 days ago. And he has been sent to communicate their dissatisfaction in the clearest possible terms. 6 shots. And with every single one, he shouts, "Gol," mimicking the sports commentators. You spent 3 hours in the hospital. You didn't make it. You died at 27 in a parking lot because your foot moved 2 inches in the wrong direction during a football match. So what does it feel like when the cartel expresses its dissatisfaction with your performance? Your body's first response is adrenaline. Massive, immediate, the kind your system only produces when it understands that everything is at stake. It buys you time, constricts blood vessels around the wounds, spikes your heart rate, shunts blood away from your extremities toward the organs that matter most. Your body has no opinion about why this is happening. It just fights. The parking lot is already becoming something you can't hold on to clearly. 12 entry wounds means 12 simultaneous crises, and your brain is being rationed like everything else. The word he kept shouting, you can still hear it. That stays longer than it should. In the hospital, your blood pressure is in free fall. Multiple wounds mean multiple leaks, and your cardiovascular system is trying to run a building with the power going out room by room. The doctors are working fast. Your body is working faster, burning through its last reserves the way an engine redlines before it stops. 3 hours is remarkable, genuinely. Most people don't get 3 hours from 12 bullets. Your body gave you everything it had. Humberto Munoz Castro was sentenced to 43 years in prison for the murder of Andrés Escobar. He served 11. 11 years for 6 bullets and the life of El Caballero del Fútbol. If you're doing the math, that's slightly less than 1 year per shot, which by any measure is a creative interpretation of the word justice. The men who sent him, the cartel associates whose money was behind the whole thing, were never charged, never tried. They went back to their lives the way powerful men in these situations tend to do, which is to say, completely uninterrupted. But here's the thing about Andrés Escobar's murder that's easy to miss if you treat it as a football story. It wasn't an exception. It was a Tuesday. Colombia in the late 1980s and early 1990s was living through a level of cartel violence that is genuinely difficult to comprehend from the outside. At its peak, Medellin had a murder rate of 380 per 100,000 people. For context, the current US average is about 6. Politicians were assassinated. Judges were assassinated. Journalists who wrote the wrong things were assassinated. The cartels operated on a simple principle. They called plata o plomo, silver or lead. Take the bribe or take the bullet. There was no third option, and very little in between.